Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we're looking at Simply Cards and Papercraft. This is issue 237. So this is the new one for this month. So I'm just going to show you what comes included in the next issue. And this has got an embossing folder, so a DL sized embossing folder from Lisa Horton Design. So it's really beautiful. It's going to be super big. And we do also have 3 dies in here as well, and of course then some elements that you can download. And these 2 cards here, these are mine, so I have a commission in the next issue, and it's really fun to see those cards there, so you can see a little sneak peek of what's included in the next issue. So for the free gifts here, we've got a 26-piece stamp set, and we also have this watercolor essentials little kit. We've got this little water brush here, which you can put water in the barrel, and then you have that lovely brush at the end. We've got a little palette of watercolor paints here. So this is a mini color sheet by Viva Colors. And we've got 6 colors in here, which is going to be perfect for pairing with the watercolor cards, like little postcards that also come included in this set. So I didn't actually show you the back of these, but you've got 6 of these images. Again, they are watercolor cards here. Lovely cardstock. And then the images actually correspond to images that are in the stamp sets. But yeah, I didn't show you the back, but you've actually got, it's actually a postcard. So you've got a place to put your stamp, a place to put your address and write a message on there as well. So you can just color these in as wall art, but then you could also sort of post them out as well if you wanted to. And then that was just a little look at the stamp set, and this is called Winter Woodland. So really lovely set. So in today's video I'm going to show you how to color watercolor one of these images. We're going to take this robin on the branch here and just using sort of the bits that you get included. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill up this barrel with water. So you can see it just really easily unscrews and screws back on again, and you literally just squeeze it to get the water out, and it comes out obviously through the brush end. I've got just a little palette here which I'm going to use for doing a little bit of mixing, and I'm also going to use a paper towel as well, just to clean my brushes and things in between. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways of watercoloring. I'm going to show you the first one just with some of these berries, and then for the next one, that's how I'm going to colour in the rest. So the first sort of technique we've got is a wet on wet technique. So I've just zoomed in so you can see a little better. And the wet on wet technique is basically where you add water to your image first of all before adding your colour. So you just add the water, like I said, first of all, and then basically what happens is when you drop that colour in, it kind of wicks around where you've popped that water. Now, this has its uses in watercolouring if you're making maybe backgrounds, if you want something a little bit softer, but what I do find with more of an intricate image like this one here, I find that it doesn't give you quite as much control, and you do end up coming out of the lines a little bit. Now obviously this is watercolour, it doesn't have to be precise, and it can be kind of whatever you want it to be really, but I did notice that where the water had sort of moved slightly outside of where I wanted to be colouring, it did mean that it was sort of wicking a bit further than I wanted it to. So that is the first technique. Again, if you're creating backgrounds, if you want something a lot softer, not anything that has any harsh lines, that is a really good technique. So for the second technique, and this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of it, we're just going to do a simple wet to dry. So this means that we're going to wet our paintbrush, we're going to pick up some of that colour from our palette, and then we're literally just going to start painting. Now, what I like to try and do as best as I can is not get as much of a concentrated colour if I'm colouring the whole image. So you can see here I'm colouring in these berries, and I'm colouring in that whole berry. So I'm trying to go in with a little bit less colour and trying to then sort of get a base layer down so we can then dry this and then add some more layers on top of it to give any dimension, any depths and shadows that we want to include. So you can see that I've just gone and done all of those berries. Now for the branch that this robin is sat on, I wanted to add a concentrated amount of colour, and then kind of pull that colour out with the water. So you can see I've added quite a concentrated amount to the edges where I want it to be darkest, and then I've come back in with a clean brush, just some water on there, and started pulling that colour out. That's going to give you some lighter areas as well as then those shadows as well. And what's really great about this brush is you can do some really fine lines here as well. You can see with these little branches coming off to the berries and the leaves as well, you can get those really fine details in there that you want to. So what I'm doing again is just putting kind of a base layer down, just getting some colour. I'm using my palette off to the side as well, just to knock off any extra concentrated colour that maybe I don't want to use. For the leaves, again, I'm doing the same thing. So because I'm not colouring it that whole image in, I'm only going in and adding colour to one half, or just, you know, down the line. And then I'm going to come back, clean off my brush, come back then with just some water and really pull out that colour. And it's going to give you a really lovely variation. It's going to give you some easy shadows as well. So for me, in terms of control, and I'm by no means any more than a beginner with watercolour in here. I find this wet on dry for something like this where I want to get that colour and get a really good colour in where it's not coming out the lines. I find the wet on dry is easiest. So you've seen that I just had a picture for a little bit of a reference of sort of how I wanted to colour this, and this is really where I'm coming in with sort of mixing these colours. So I took the yellow, the brown and the red. So obviously this the sort of little face and this part of the chest of the robin is more of a orange shade. So I did start off, it was a little bit darker than what I wanted it to be, but I managed to pull that back, and then I created a really nice with this brown, sort of lighter brown shade. And the idea was I was going to try and add the lighter color to the highlight portions and then come in with the darker color. To be honest, I did kind of go over that lighter colour a little bit with that darker colour, but I'm still really happy with how it turned out. So I'm just going to dry this in between, because what you want to be careful with when you are watercolouring, if you're doing two different colours next to each other, so because the orange was still a little bit wet, the colour was bleeding and sort of wicking into that area where I didn't want it to be. So if you are going to be watercolouring two different colours next to each other, what I'd recommend is waiting until that first area has dried before going in with your second colour, because you will find that they will kind of wick together. Work your way around it where you're not necessarily painting two areas next to each other. So you can see that I did the branch at the start, waited for those to dry, and then came back in to do the feet, just so you had that difference between the two. And you can kind of come back in and again add those layers, get some highlights in there, get some more shadows in there as well. So you can keep working on this, but it is key to know kind of when to stop. So the last thing I am going to do, so we didn't really talk about it too much, is on that branch. I did sort of come out of the lines. I think I dropped a little bit of water and it kind of wicked out everywhere. Now, if you do find that you want to neaten up an image like this after watercolouring, go in with a really clean brush, just go in with some water and kind of move that colour around a little bit. You can kind of lift that colour back, just dab it then with a paper towel and you can virtually make it disappear. So that was just a really easy way to colour in this image. I'm just going to come in with a fine liner to add just the eye detail. I'm not outlining anything else, but you absolutely could do that if you wanted to. But I found this a really easy piece just to colour in. It only took me about half an hour to colour all of this in, but it's a really good sort of beginner piece if you want to get into watercolouring a little bit more. If it's something that you want to improve on, images like this are really great because it's not too tiny where you're working in small spaces. You've got some bigger areas there to try out some different techniques, but definitely give it a go with the wet on wet and the wet on dry to see what you do prefer yourself. Like I said, for this, the majority, it was wet on dry for me, but wet on wet does certainly have its place. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope this was a little helpful to you to get started with a little bit of watercolouring. Again, this is issue 237 of Simply Cards and Papercraft. So that's going to be it for this video. If you did enjoy it, give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, then hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. That's going to be it for today. today. Thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.